What's up? Welcome back to episode 2 of the Barton and Bud show. And full disclosure for the audience, Bud, this is the second time we've recorded this episode today. Look, I don't know. This is one-on-one, just basically pressing record. Somehow I screwed it up. And if we can't even get this right, I don't know how you're going to be able to miss all of spring practice and all of summer conditioning and come out and be able to line up the right way in college football next fall.
Yeah, man, that was interesting. I really don't feel like it was your fault. There, your computer just Barton goes, "Hey, I'm getting the spinning wheel of death here,"
and here now here we are, like second episode or second attempt at this episode. I got two four-year-olds under coming in and screaming. So okay, no, yeah, they got to go. Okay.
Have you seen the BBC the BBC guy whose kid's running the room and then the nanny comes in and like snatches him back?
I have.
He's doing the live broadcast.
I have seen that. Yes.
I'm kind of picturing if we could flip your camera, that's probably what's happening.
Yeah,
there.
that's exactly what's happening. Probably even a little bit more chaotic. So here we are. Yeah, I don't know if we cut that or we just leave it in and keep rolling. But
I think we leave it. Like how many people at home are experiencing that? Literally, before we hit record on version 2.0 or 1.0 of this morning, Barton goes, "Yeah, see, if we nap the kids, then they don't go to bed until like 9 o'clock, and if we don't nap them, then they're just hellions at starting at about 5 p.m. Eastern." So. And we're coming up on that range.
First attempt at this podcast, this episode, was they took a nice long walk. They've gone out of the house for like an hour and a half, and no such luck this time around. We're in the thick of it. You may hear some screams, some like guttural yelling from upstairs or downstairs, but here we are. So now that we're here, now the kids are out of the room, the door's shut again. Coronavirus, huh?
Yeah, man. So we got some famous people talking about coronavirus this week with Kirk Herbstreit saying that he kind of has a hard time seeing the college football season being played this year. And I was like, wow, that's kind of bold for somebody whose company broadcasts more games than anybody else out there.
Yeah. And in Herbstreit's defense, I don't think he was trying to like issue a statement, but TMZ got him, and I guess he responded, and here's the quote. He said, "I'll be shocked if we have NFL football this fall, if we have college football. I'll be surprised if that happens also. Just because from what I understand, people that I listen to, you're 12 to 18 months from a coronavirus vaccine. I don't know how you let these guys go into locker rooms and let stadiums be filled up and how you can play ball. I just don't know how you can do it with the optics of it." So, yeah, pretty sobering. I mean, Kirk Herbstreit has no reason to try to create a panic. He wants this football season to kick off as much as anybody. And before we even recorded here this second attempt at this episode, did you see that Toronto is shutting down all public events through June 30th?
Ooh, so if you happen to maybe place a bet on will MLB be played before June 1st, you may be sitting pretty.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the Blue Jays are and well, honestly, like this kind of screws up the NBA season. Are the Raptors? The Raptors they're the defending champs, right? They're going to be in the playoffs at least.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's a little bit. So Chris Hummer for 24/7 Sports wrote a story on this about the necessity for like a lead up to not just the season, but to the preseason, to have a period of time where you're getting the players in shape for preseason practice. And let's just say June 30th, again, hey, Toronto did it till June 30th, but like, what does that mean? Does that mean that is there some point a trickle down to June 30th being a date in the United States in some capacity? That's about the drop dead date. Like bad phrasing there, but like that's about the last possible date you can use because you're going to need, Brian Kelly said it publicly, other coaches have talked on it, like you're going to need a good 4 weeks of conditioning and training to even have guys in a position where they can be healthy for preseason practices and be physically prepared for the grind that puts on you from a win standpoint, but also just from like an injury prevention standpoint.
And this gets back to what we were talking about last week. Despite all of what we see on Instagram and Twitter and how everybody's hashtag grinding, like despite the fact that they're not on campus and everybody's doing their workouts, we know practically that the variance in terms of what you're going to get back with your roster is going to be so much greater than what you would normally have if you actually had all your kids on campus over the summer because of things like access to weights or lack of, nutrition or lack thereof, rehab, lack thereof. The reason they need that full month of conditioning is because I think these coaches are scared to death about what kind of roster they're going to have come June, come July, right? Like not having their kids on campus for 4 months, that scares the hell out of these guys. And for their jobs, it probably should. If let's say they don't get it back till like July, do we think the season would be delayed or early games would be cut out of safety reasons? I'm skeptical that the companies who own these broadcast rights are going to be cool with moving these games for safety reasons.
I mean, but it's all like we're in totally uncharted territory. Brett McMurphy, I saw, reported that athletic directors and administrators are having discussions in a worst case scenario sort of way about potentially kicking off the season in like October or even January. So we're at that point. I think you could see potentially like anything's on the table. I mean, the whole country is sitting at home right now. Like anything is on the table. And so, hey, does the season kick off a couple weeks later? Do they get rid of the non-conference games? Or is there some really much more dramatic solution? But I think one thing is clear, and you talk about sort of the broadcasting partners, and I just think some of that stuff might be more malleable than maybe it would be in any other situation. But secondly, like from a financial standpoint, just in terms of the revenue for these athletic programs, not the football team, but just funding the whole athletic program, they got to find a way to get the season going somehow. So I feel like it feels like whatever it takes is going to be what happens to get some sort of a season off the ground.
You know, one thing we've seen kind of bandied about is the idea of playing the games in front of empty stadiums. And I think for some sports, that actually might be able to work. And those sports would be the sports that are not team sports. Football, to me, doesn't really work with that concept simply because, A, it is a team sport. You're in literal close contact with each other and literally colliding with each other. You have fluids, voluntarily, involuntarily flying around out there. You have trainers, you have coaches, you have support staff, all those type of people. And football's a big operation. I mean, you're talking about, including walk-ons, 100 guys on the sideline, just players every Saturday times 2. I mean, that's a couple hundred people that you need to put on a college football game. If we have tennis, if we have golf, to me that's a little bit different because you can do some social distancing within there. But I don't think the idea of empty stadium college football is likely to improve your odds of having college football that much. Now, it might help reduce spread some, but the only thing that's really going to get us back playing is if hospitals are no longer being overtaxed, right? And that's I think a point you actually made in this morning's show. Is like we have to get to a spot to where if it does spread around a little bit, it's not going to overwhelm the hospitals, which means we have to be on the backside of the spread and really put that peak in our review. And looking at China, looking at South Korea, two countries that are clearly on the backside of this now, I think they will be instructive, as to when their team sports resume. I know China has not yet resumed basketball. I haven't seen anything on South Korea resuming. We know there's some table tennis going on right now, which I was just looking at the live betting windows earlier today, like what can you wager on if you wanted to, and I obviously did not because I don't know any of these guys' names, and I can't find any kind of video feed of
it. But you have a Barton and Bud podcast task. You need to next show. You need to have some intel on where we can get the live feeds of these games or these ping pong matches. yeah,
Now I can get you the live feed of like a digital ball going back and forth. It looks like Pong.
that ain't
almost.
cutting it. That ain't. I need to see I need to see some competitive facial expressions, like to really fit the bill for me.
Oh, hey, there's ice hockey going on somewhere in the world right now.
Where?
Barton. We have Cheteri Ledokola at Molotobojski, which is probably that's got to be Russian or
Yeah, well, I could see. Russia ain't messing around. Like they'll make something happen. Yeah, I can buy that.
yeah. I have no idea what league this is. I'm sure Fornelli might know.
Well, he probably does. He's probably watching it right now.
What about esports? Are you into esports at all? And I know there's some college esports.
Listen, if I got to make that jump, I'm willing. I'm willing to dabble. I'm willing to take a look.
Can you imagine scouting esports? Be like, all right, hey man, I got this 14-year-old. Reflexes are just crazy. He on the sticks. He's amazing. Blah, blah, blah,
I think you're onto something. New vertical. So,
all right, so the last coronavirus thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go have at it.
So just a real quick before we get into some actual football talk, is the ACT and SAT. And I had some coaches this week tell me, hey man, like I haven't seen anybody write about this yet, but we're kind of low-key or high-key concerned that some of these athletes who were supposed to enroll in our school in June and July, they haven't passed their ACT and SAT yet, and it's more than a couple. And what are we going to do? Like, is the NCAA going to give us a waiver? Because all these testing dates are being wiped out. And it's impacting normal students who are going to be going to college, in 2021. But for some of these kids who are trying to get in to play football in 2020, they still don't have test scores yet. And like, what's the alternative to not granting a waiver? Sending a bunch of these kids to JUCO, making them all take academic red shirts or something, and letting them enroll? I don't know what the result of that will be, but it sounds like this is something that's worrying some teams that recruit sort of on those academic margins. Yeah,
and you would think at least they should get that initial counter scholarship number back for next year if they're not able to get those guys qualified. Based on them not being able to take a test in the spring or summer. Like, I mean, there's a lot of complications to this thing. And I think the NCAA is going to have to be more forgiving than ever. Because otherwise it's just like, it's going to be messy regardless, but, I wouldn't want to be in those offices in Indianapolis. That's for sure. There's going to be some tough decisions, tough solutions to come up with. You want to dig into some football?
Yeah, let's go from something that is tough, like NCAA decisions, to something that seems real easy, which is Ohio State recruiting right now. They're more just picking and choosing than recruiting. They end up landing Travion Henderson. Do we have him as a 5-star right now?
No, we don't have him. He may be a composite 5-star. In fact, I don't think he's that either. But here's what I've got a prediction. My prediction is that he's pacing towards 5-star status. We'll put it that way. And he is our number 1 running back in the country. I think he's the number 2 running back in the country, according to 24/7 Sports composite rankings.
Perfect. Okay, so he ends up going to Ohio State over Oklahoma, Virginia Tech. He has like 30 offers, so that really impressive kid, explosive, good size, and like you said, we're not real quick to slap the 5-star tag on everybody in March, but he could get there certainly. Ohio State's class right now, the difference between Ohio State's class and the number 2 class is the same as the difference between the number 20 class and the number 50 class. Like, they are lapping everybody else, and I include Clemson in that, even though Clemson is kind of lapping everybody else not named Ohio State to a certain extent. So this is pretty special. It's almost as if the Buckeyes don't really, like, they're not aware coronavirus is happening. Like, guys, y'all seem to be functioning with, like, no problems, just killing it. And I think a lot of that is they did have such a good head start on this year's class because they had most of last year's hay in the barn, by what, Halloween? I know they had a couple guys down the stretch, but they were pretty much done. They've been working on 2021 for, like, probably solely focused on 2021 for quite a few months now.
Well, and they've become such a national recruiting presence. I mean, this class, just the makeup of the class is so impressive. So they've got, I'm just going to kind of run down the list here to give the casual fan here an idea of who these players are. They got the number 2 strong side defensive end in the country. Okay, he's an Ohio kid. He's a 5-star. Travion Henderson, who, correct myself, he is currently a composite 5-star, number 2 running back in the country according to composite. 5-star quarterback, number 3 pro style in the country, who's Kyle McCord. They've got the number 1 offensive guard in the country, Donovan Jackson. And again, I just mentioned an Ohio kid, a Virginia kid, a Pennsylvania kid, a Texas kid, Marvin Harrison Jr. You may know that name.
Who?
He is another Philly kid who's a wide receiver. He is who you think he is, the son of the Hall of Famer. Reed Carrico, number 2 linebacker in the country. Evan Pryor, the number 6 running back in the country. Again, they already have the number 2. Pryor's from North Carolina. So not only are they getting like line of scrimmage elite athletes, they're getting quarterbacks, they're getting guys from all over the country. Like geographically, this is the way juggernauts recruit right now. And I think the trajectory of this from a program standpoint is without question, like Ohio State is going to win a national championship in soon. It's not a matter of if. I really believe it's a matter of when. And they're getting close. Like, even from a roster standpoint, the last few years, like I think everyone considers this Alabama, Clemson, and as sort of been the teams of the 2010s or whatever. Obviously, LSU cycled up this past year, and it was because LSU has been recruiting at a high enough level. Like they were ready to cycle up because they had the talent to cycle up. I think Ohio State's ready to cycle up. They have the talent to cycle up. They've been, according to the 24/7 Sports Team Talent Composite, which measures the players on your current roster, accounting for attrition and transfers and all that sort of stuff, based on their high school rankings. Ohio State had the number 2 roster in the country this past year, number 1 roster in the country 2 years ago, number 2 roster in the country 3 years ago. Like they're right there. And now they have a quarterback in Justin Fields who is elite. And now I think they have a coach in Ryan Day who is proving that we already had confidence in his ability to coach, his ability to scheme, his ability to put up points. Now he's showing that he can take the baton from Urban Meyer and he can recruit at this elite level as well. I mean, this is a class that Alabama and Clemson's right there nipping at their heels, but Alabama and Georgia and the other traditional recruiting powers, like they'd love to have this class. Like they're jealous of the way these programs are recruiting, and I think that's relevant. That's important.
It is, and I think if you look at this within the Big Ten and really within their region, they're the only team whose top like realistic goal is national championship year in, year out. Penn State, Michigan, their top realistic goal for the most part is win the conference, make the playoff, right? Like I think that Ohio State has shown enough on the field and especially now off the field in terms of talent acquisition that we can say, okay, they have a realistic shot and should be considered one of the absolute favorites to win the national title. And this might be their best chance, man. Like, yeah. I'm not saying for all time, but show me the last year in which an SEC team was not one of the 2 national title favorites entering the year.
Is Ohio State one of the top 2?
Yeah, it's Clemson and Ohio State in most shops that I see.
Yeah.
It's always been an SEC squad and then somebody else typically, or sometimes 2 SEC squads. This year, it's Ohio State, Clemson, or Clemson, Ohio State.
I mean, I made this comment when Justin Fields was in high school. I said he's going to win a national title. Like how good is he? He's going to win a national title. He is a quarterback that's capable of elevating you to a national title, and it's just a matter of who lands him. And he's at Ohio State. He got Ohio State playoffs in year 1. And keep in mind that was year 1. And I expected probably when I said that I expected him to be playing three years at some place. He's going to play 2 years as a starter, but year 2, I think we could see really. I don't know about dramatic because you can't. How dramatic can you get? He was a Heisman Trophy candidate, but I think you could see noticeable development in terms of and he was already really good, obviously. But I think you could see maybe like an even, like souped up Justin Fields this year, which would be obviously huge for Ohio State. So, yeah, I mean they're going to be tough to beat. Go ahead.
No, they really are. It's just from an editorial standpoint, how much do you love that we get the Trevor and Justin Fields battle like on a national stage, perhaps yet again? I mean, they've been battling basically since they were like juniors in high school.
It's pretty amazing.
This is pretty cool.
We had them at 24/7 Sports. We had them as the 2 highest rated quarterbacks we've ever had, and they were in the same class, 1-2. And if we already had one showdown, it'd be pretty cool to get another one, and then maybe then we can have some Bryce Young, DJ Uiagalelei showdowns to come for Alabama and Clemson too. So anyway, hey, moving on though, unless you got more on this, I did want to touch. I did want to touch briefly on a Maryland commit, and we'll get into football here in a second. But one more recruiting note. I think you gotta just mention that Mike Locksley just landed probably the best pass rusher in the country in Damian Robinson. Certainly one of them. And a guy that I know that I've talked to other schools that believe he is the best pass rusher in the country. This is what Maryland has to do. He is the kid's from Maryland. He is, he had whatever. I'm not going to rattle off the stats; they're absurd. But he's an elite edge guy, and Maryland has they really haven't locked down the region like Mike Locksley had hoped he would. And they had a tough season to work off of, but now here we are, and potentially this is the type of commit that could give some guys some confidence to jump on board and maybe build some momentum on the recruiting trail.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. If I was to throw out a number here, 250, right? Mike Locksley gets Damian. This kid is a stud. Great pass rusher. 250 days, Barton. Over or under how long Maryland holds this commit. Because I remember Dwayne Haskins. I remember the movement, right? I remember all this stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, this is going to be the year we're going to keep all these DMV kids, and they're going to go to Maryland, right? And we just got done talking about Ohio State. We all remember where Haskins ended up after he flipped. Will this be different? In your opinion, can they actually hold on to Robinson? Because 250 days takes us to December 2nd if he stays committed that long. You think they can actually sign him, or do you think this is just giving us something to talk about here in the offseason? And I'm not opposed to talking about stuff in the offseason because clearly we need stuff to talk about. But, can they actually close this deal? Because I feel like we see this damn near every year with Maryland. And I know Locksley's a little bit different now, but
he hadn't proven.
What do you think?
He hadn't proven to be any different yet. It's not as if Locksley came in and there was they did get Rakeem Jarrett, who they flipped from LSU late in this past recruiting cycle, and that was huge. He was a top 100 wide receiver out of Maryland. So they've shown flashes, but nothing sustained. So it's a fair question, and I'm still going to go over here. I think that, and a big part of it, unfortunately for human civilization, is the coronavirus situation and the fact that everyone's locked down, no one's traveling. This kid's not going to go visit anywhere. He's not going to have the opportunity to go visit anywhere. He's not going to have colleges come by, showing him love, stopping by the school. He's not going to, look, they're still going to hit him up. People are still going to recruit him. But I think that when you're Maryland, when you're Rutgers, when you're trying to get something going locally, and these kids aren't really given the opportunity to go hit up the bus tour, hit up the college camp circuit, just be around other coaching staffs and other programs. It's going to be back to the old days when, wherever your local program is, this is kind of the one that's got the big head start on you. And I think this is a situation that Maryland could really sort of spin into some success on the recruiting trail.
I think that's That's really intriguing. I'm going to remind you on December 2nd, we're going to revisit this. Speaking of which, you actually have an article coming out about this, and by the time y'all listen to this, it might already be out. But you have an article talking about how having talent in your own backyard this year might be even more of an advantage than it normally is.
Yeah. I was teed up for that. I was ready for that question because I'd just been studying that stuff, and I think Rutgers and Maryland are two to mention that I don't necessarily think are like necessarily loaded from a this isn't like a rare year necessarily in those regions, but those are areas that I think programs that can find success because of the circumstances. Whereas I think I look at Iowa. Iowa apparently has offered more guys from the state of Iowa this cycle than Kirk Ferentz has in his entire 21 years as the head coach. That tells you a little something about what they think about the local talent this cycle. Miami may actually be able to hang on to some of these guys. They always get committed early for once. Maybe they can, if all these guys aren't taking the bus tours per usual, maybe they can get a couple of these sort of top-tier commits in a really good year in South Florida. Florida's already capitalized on a strong year in the state of Florida to this point. They're a team to watch. So there's a handful of them out there that are Washington's got it's like a loaded year in the state of Washington. They only have one guy committed from that group yet, but look, I mean, again, if you're in the state of Washington, there's not a lot of big time programs within driving distance, and so you need these opportunities in the spring and summer to get out and see teams. Jimmy Lake will take it just fine with these guys all sitting at home, and then they can keep on calling. They've already got their visits in to Washington, so they'll happily capitalize on this.
The world of golf is on hiatus, but thankfully for you, the First Cut podcast crew is not. Join Mark Immelman, Kyle Porter, Greg Ducharme, and myself, Rick Gaiman, as we keep you informed and entertained through this unprecedented time. No tournament? No problem. We're still coming at you 3 times a week during these trying times. Tune in as we bring you weekly news, rewatches, interviews, and trivia. What are you waiting for? Come join our group and let's talk golf. Download and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else podcasts are found.
All right, so let's go ahead and transition over here to a pretty cool story that you wrote called The Next Joe Burrow Story. And just go ahead and explain it to folks at home. Who do you have who's got next?
Right. So the idea for this story is just, Joe Burrow obviously was a guy that we didn't see coming to this degree. Derek Stingley, we kind of did see him coming, but obviously he was the guy that the true freshman sort of took college football by storm. Like there's these sort of unique stories, and the framework of which can be used for us to sort of predict who's stepping into those shoes, who's filling that role in the next sort of stories of college football.
All right, so let's go ahead and go to this one, right? This is going to be interesting. I know this is going to get the message boards kind of worked up a little bit. The next Henry Ruggs. Criteria would be the guy who's the next future NFL Combine superstar, and Barton picked Anthony Schwartz of Auburn, a guy who is just an absolute track freak, and unless we're missing somebody, was probably the fastest man in college football as soon as he stepped foot on the field as a true freshman. And yet, I'm interested in your thought process on this because, to me, like he's not anywhere close to the receiver that Ruggs was. Ruggs already had really good receiver skills despite playing 2 other sports in high school, and he was kind of like raw but yet still really, really damn good and had like so much more ceiling. He had a lot of other skills that I don't know that Schwartz has, but so how did you settle on Schwartz here?
So let me clarify, because this is what I'm calling my shot on Anthony Schwartz is not that he is the next Henry Ruggs on the field. I'm saying he is the next Henry Ruggs in terms of being a combine freak. In fact, I've always had some, I'd say, hesitations with Anthony Schwartz as a pure wide receiver. And to this point in his college career, like he sort of has been a little bit of a gimmick guy in that Gus Malzahn offense. So I'm actually fascinated. Yes, I think he's going to be a beast at the combine, whenever that comes. If it's next year or the year after. I mean, the guy runs a 10, like borderline sub-10 second 100-meter dash. Like he's Olympic caliber in terms of his speed. So it'll be fun to see what he runs, and there'll be all kinds of Twitter videos popping off about Anthony Schwartz's 40. But I think the question that this didn't even attempt to answer, but that I still posed, was sort of, all that said, let's talk about him as a football player, which is what you're getting at. And as a football player, I think Anthony Schwartz's success this fall is going to be incredibly telling and incisive as it relates to how this offense is operating with Chad Morris at the helm as an offensive coordinator, because Gus Malzahn's offense has always been clunky in the throw game, and it's always sort of relied on an athletic quarterback. And is this finally the time when the Malzahn hands over the keys charade is actually like legitimate, and Chad Morris can help evolve this pass game? Because I'd love to see if Anthony Schwartz can be more than a jet sweep guy, more than a play action post guy.
Yeah, Barton, according to my notes here, this is an even-numbered year, so it's going to be a Chad Morris needs to hand the keys off, Gus Malzahn needs to hand the keys off to his offensive coordinator so he can focus on the bigger picture of the program year. And next year will probably be the Gus needs to get back to his roots type of year.
Right.
It seems to alternate there on the plains. Look, if Auburn can get Anthony Schwartz to be a receiver and not just a run a 9 route and jet sweep and catch a bubble guy, that's going to be pretty damn scary, because that means he's developed some skills other than just track speed. And I'm interested to see that. He never really dominated that much in high school in Florida, despite having that insane speed. He had some big time plays, but he wasn't dominant like a Jerry Jeudy type was down in South Florida. So I'm interested to see what will happen with that for sure. And you bring up a great point, by the way, about Malzahn's offense. Like, name me your favorite Malzahn offense that did not have a mobile quarterback.
I don't have one.
It might be like Chris Todd in 2009. I'm thinking back to what he had at Arkansas State.
I mean, the first Jarrett Stidham year was a pretty good team, but the offense was never that pleasing to the eye. It was still just pound the rock,
that was the one that Clemson sacked him 9 times in that opening game?
Yeah, I think that's the year.
Okay. they made some adjustments,
right.
Stop driving back.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think we have time for.
Let's do the next Isaiah Simmons at the very least. All right, because
this is cool.
Because this one I really like the idea of this one. So the next Isaiah Simmons is basically, I'm looking for the next college football's next Swiss Army knife. Because remember what Isaiah Simmons was. There wasn't a position you could define him as. He was a little bit of linebacker, a little bit nickel, a little bit free safety. He was just this total hybrid modern freak show. And for this one, I went with Micah Parsons. And to this point, Micah Parsons has been a linebacker for Penn State. He's going to be a linebacker again for Penn State this year. But when I think back at Micah Parsons in high school, he averaged 11 yards a carry at running back, rushing for about 1,200 yards. He would line up at wide receiver at college camps and totally expose 4-star cornerbacks. He went to the Army All-American Bowl and was the best pass rusher there. Was a terrifying pass rusher. There's a couple videos of him just nearly beheading whoever was the quarterback. I can't even remember who it was, but it was scary for those guys. And so he shows up at Penn State, And understandably, they put him at linebacker. He leads the team in tackles as a true freshman without even starting. He's one of the best linebackers in the country last year, and he'll be one of the best linebackers in the country this year. But now that we're in year 3, I'm just fascinated to see whether Penn State kind of lines him up as an edge rusher a little more often, maybe gets him involved in some more like exotic coverages, some more deep coverage sort of roles. Whether they, the one I'm really excited about is like maybe they line him up at running back in the red zone, a goal line situation. Maybe they line him up at tight end or even like split out wide.
I want to see him in the red zone.
Yeah,
man. Do it, Penn State. Like short yardage.
Get him some Heisman votes.
Absolutely. Look, they need to do it. Think about what he was as a pass rusher back when he was killing it in those videos. He doesn't have amazing length. I mean, he's not stubby, but it was the get off and the ability to bend. And I think those things really help him as a backer. You could use him in coverage, like you said, more creative ways. Make the opposing offense think. They already have to ID where he is on every play. Like having that player who's that good, but who can also be that versatile, it just creates more things that the offense has to think about. I want to see them blitz him more. I want to see him in coverage more. Penn State's defense is going to be pretty salty, by the way.
No doubt.
Like I was talking to Sean Fitz of the Penn State site, and he's like, yeah, Brandon Smith's probably going to be taken into a starting role. So you're going to have him on that defense with Micah Parsons, and they're not even sure Lance Dixon is necessarily going to be a starter this year. And he's athletically, just crazy freaky.
Yeah.
Like that if you have that much talent around Parsons, you could really free him up to do some special stuff.
It's pretty remarkable what they've done in recruiting at the linebacker position.
Also, I love Parsons' attitude on the field. I mean, he has a different level of like F you. I don't know. Can we say that on
I think you're allowed to say F. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'll let it go.
He just kind of he has that little like, oh, did I bump the quarterback in when we were wearing shells? Oh, my bad. And then he gets a little helmet under the chin next time. He's got some nastiness to him.
Yeah. So we'll see if Micah Parsons can lead Penn State to a Big Ten championship, because we talked about how good Ohio State is as well. But we'll kind of call it for the day, bud. Round 2 of our second podcast was feel good about it. If you feel good about it, if you like it, if you like what you're hearing, or if you just are kind of a positive person, feel free to give us 5 stars. Please do, in fact. Give us a comment in the reviews. That's helpful for us. It helps get us going, get this podcast some legs, some traction, and we'd much appreciate it.
The world of golf is on hiatus, but thankfully for you, the First Cut podcast crew is not. Join Mark Immelman, Kyle Porter, Greg Ducharme, and myself, Rick Gaiman, as we keep you informed and entertained through this unprecedented time. No tournament? No problem. We're still coming at you 3 times a week during these trying times. Tune in as we bring you weekly news, rewatches, interviews, and trivia. What are you waiting for? Come join our group and let's talk golf. Download and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else podcasts are found.